My dad is working as a maintenance guy at the metro station. Now and then he works night shifts. My dad always had adventure stories to tell me when I was younger, but when I got older he told me this story that was bizarre and creepy. So his work contains of maintaining all sorts of errors that might occur, whether that is on the tracks or in the office. He was doing his usual rounds in the underground metro station. The place was deserted, and the silence of the tunnels was occasionally broken by the distant rumble of approaching trains. My old man always had some incredible stories to share after his shifts, but this one was on a whole other level. In his office at the station were CCTV cameras all over the place, and he had a direct view of what was happening on those screens from his maintenance room. That night, he was just about to call it a quiet shift when something caught his eye on the monitor. This guy comes running down the stairs leading into the station. The guy looked absolutely terrified, like he was fleeing from something. He scanned the area, eyes darting around frantically, as if he was searching for a place to hide or someone to help him. At first, my dad just thought it was another one of those crazy people on crack. They are everywhere to find in a metro station. But wait, it gets worse. Not even 20 seconds later, the sound of not only one but multiple people heading down the very same stairs this other guy came from. The first thing my dad notices is the noise. A group of 4 people descending the stairs side by side. I kid you not, they were wearing those creepy plague masks. His blood ran cold as they spread out on the platform, scanning the area with an unhurried precision. Behind every corner, every trash can, every sign. They even attempted to open every door. Everything on the floor was thoroughly scanned. My dad just stood there and looked at the CCTV, confused at what was going on, but at the same time terrified, especially because the door into the office was also checked. The masked men get back in the same position that they came down the first stairs with and continue down the next stairs, which lead down to the metro. Now here's where it takes a truly horrifying turn. My dad, glued to the CCTV feed, suddenly hears a prolonged, desperate scream. He could tell it was the first guy. The scream echoed through the empty station. Without a second's hesitation, those 4 masked figures ran towards the terrified man. They started beating him mercilessly, landing blow after blow while the poor guy lay defenseless on the platform. The man lay unconscious, a bloody, broken mess, and the 4 men showed no signs of stopping before their job was done. The next thing he saw was those 4 masked men pushed the defenseless guy down onto the tracks and left him there, motionless and vulnerable. My dad had called the police as soon as he saw the men began to beat up this guy. He was on the phone with the police before he even fully comprehended what he'd witnessed. As soon as those 4 twisted individuals left the scene, my dad didn't hesitate. He rushed down to the tracks to pull the unconscious man from the brink of death. It felt like an eternity, but he finally managed to pull the man to safety just before the police entered the station. He had never seen such brutality, such heartless violence, and that's also the reason he didn't tell me before I got older. I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't the first time they have done this. With that sort of precision they had, the accuracy, the coordination, it was sick. If it was all fun and games for them, or if they are some sort of debt collectors, I don't know. My friend had just turned 18 and we decided that we wanted to go clubbing the following week to celebrate. Days went by and it was Friday night. My friends and I decided to hit up one of those trendy clubs downtown. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing, and the city was packed with people. We were having a blast, dancing like there was no tomorrow. Minutes turned into hours and we got drunk and tired. Fast forward to the end of the night, the club was closing, and my friends and I were making our way exit. I had to take the metro to get home as I was heading straight to my brother and not home to my parents. This is where things take a turn for the worse. Already when we were dancing in the club, this guy kept dancing close against me and my friends. A guy who looked to be in his early 30s. We told him off a couple of times, but didn't think any further of it as he disappeared after the 3rd or 4th time. I don't really remember. The girls were heading in the same direction as me, so they practically followed me to the metro. I went downstairs and waited patiently for my metro. About 2 minutes later, the same man that we had trouble with at the club entered the metro station. My body froze. I had no idea what to do. Thoughts struck through my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that this guy was following me. The metro came and I prayed to God that it wasn't empty. I waited a bit before entering to watch if the man would enter before me, just to somewhat clarify if it was all just a coincidence. The man didn't approach it. I slowly went inside, and just before the door slammed shut, the man entered. I felt surrounded, even though the car was empty, except from us. He positioned himself at the far end of the metro car, so he had a clear view of me but pretended not to. I tried to ignore him, but every time I looked in his direction, he'd quickly avert his gaze. It was like a messed up game of cat and mouse. Of course, he knew what he was up to, but I was pretty sure I knew it too. And I'm pretty sure he knew that I knew. Like it was a sick and twisted game for this sick individual. At this point, I knew I had to do something. I stood up suddenly, pretending it was my stop. The man rose too, confirming my suspicions. My actual stop was still a few stations away, so I sat back down, nervously pretending I'd changed my mind. I watched as he did the same. My heart pounded like a drum and I felt trapped. I decided to make a call to my brother. I needed someone to know what was happening, just in case. He answered, and I whispered the whole situation into the phone, including the description of the man following me. My brother told me he was on his way to pick me up. That reassured me a bit, but I was still stuck in that metro car with this psycho stranger. The minutes dragged on as I pretended to be calm, desperately waiting for my brother to be with me. Finally, our metro pulled into my stop. I knew my brother was waiting there and I couldn't wait to get off that train. I stood up and so did the man, his eyes locked onto me like a predator closing in on its prey. But then the moment of truth came, as the metro doors slid open, revealing my brother's face. The man's eyes widened in shock and he turned on his heels without saying a word, disappearing into the station. I shudder to imagine what could have happened if I hadn't called my brother, or if he hadn't been there to pick me up. It's a sobering reminder that the world can be a scary place, even on a seemingly ordinary night out. So, please, everyone stay safe, trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to reach out for help when you need it. At my job, I work night shifts, morning shifts, and all sorts of shifts you can imagine. I was riding the metro on my way home from a day shift minding my own business. At this time, there is often crazy people and weird people riding the metro. So I was sitting there, headphones in, lost in my own world. The metro car was nothing near empty. Myself and a bunch of other people. Across from me sat a guy who was stretching his legs, which was taking up much of the space considering the car was packed. He seemed ordinary enough, just like any other commuter. In walks this dude. Looked like he'd had a rough day, but who hasn't, right? He stumbles as he enters and accidentally bumps into the guy standing across from me. Instead of a simple sorry, this turned into a full-blown screaming match. I pulled my earbuds out and couldn't help but overhear their argument. It was petty at first, like two kids squabbling over a toy. But then, it escalated faster than I have ever seen. The two of them were in each other's faces, spitting venom, and the tension in that cramped metro car was suffocating. The other passengers were avoiding eye contact, just as uncomfortable as I was. I kept thinking, please someone step in and defuse this, but no one did. And then it went from bad to worse. The guy who had been bumped into pulls out this freaking caliper tool from his bag. I couldn't believe my eyes. He swung that thing like he'd been practicing for years, and it connected with a sickening thud against the other guy's head. As if it is not bad enough already. One hit wasn't enough, he swung that thing 4 times. Blood sprayed, and it was everywhere. On the walls, on the floor, and even on the people nearby. I was in shock, frozen in my seat, unable to do anything. The guy who had attacked the other one just calmly walked away, like he'd just finished a casual stroll in the park. The wounded man collapsed to the floor, clutching his bleeding head, gasping for breath. It was a gruesome scene, and I'll spare you the details. The whole metro car was in chaos. People were screaming, crying, trying to get as far away from the horror as possible. Police were called and waited at the next station, as the metro had already started to move again. By the time the police arrived at the next station, the attacker was long gone. The cops swarmed the scene, taking statements, reviewing surveillance footage, and trying to piece together what happened. I gave them my account of the horrifying ordeal, and they seemed just as baffled as I was. I had to get off the metro at that point, still shaken by what I'd witnessed. The adrenaline was pumping through my veins, and my thoughts were a jumbled mess. I don't know what drove that guy to attack the other one with a caliper tool in the middle of a metro car. I don't know what happened to him afterward. All I know is that I've never felt such fear and helplessness in my life.